All right, so I'm actually really rushed today, and I'm not really concentrated on this at all. I've got 10,000 other things to do, but I really need to get this thing out before I ask a friend to make some calls and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and do my part two of the geopolitical ramifications and situation that pertains to America's involvement with this war in Israel. Now, I'm not going to concentrate too much on the spiritual and symbolic, metaphorical meaning behind all things today, but there is one thing that I want to mention at the outset. Okay? China is the empire of the dragon. And the dragon is an enemy in the scriptures. It's the snake in the Garden of Eden. It's all throughout, there's Marduk versus Tiamat in the Enuma Elish. There's all these, St. George versus the dragon. The dragon in the Central, Middle Eastern, and Western mythology is a bad guy going all the way to Smaug in The Lord of the Rings. Beowulf against the dragon. It's a quintessential bad guy in religious and mythological symbolism. Further, the modern country of China is based on religion is the opiate of the masses and is a fundamentally atheist country. Now, I love Chinese people. I like people, okay? The U.S. and Russia are having quite a bit of problems right now, and I ride bikes with Russians. Okay, so I don't associate what big governments are doing with the people that I meet, for one. And I actually particularly love Chinese food. Far Eastern Asian, Korean, Thai, Vietnamese, Chinese food is my favorite food. And I love traditional Chinese medicine. I'm not really a fan of Western medicine and particularly the American healthcare system. So this is nothing against Chinese people that I know, but in the overall overarching meaning of modern geopolitics, the country of China seems to be set in a different path than what we have in the Middle East, which is monotheistic theocracies. And then in the West, we have the Judeo-Christian secular democracies. We value freedom and we suffer a lot for it. Our country, has a lot of divisions. It has, all kinds of crazy stuff that happens and a lot of infighting and so on and so forth. But we're not totalitarian, okay? And freedom is at the top of my list for human values. And that goes all the way to deep theological concepts and philosophical concepts as well. So, going from there, I see what the Trump administration has been going for has been to shift the post-Cold War United States sole superpower, subsidizing the world, into a quadrupolar world based on the United States as a power, Europe as a power, Russia as a power, and China as a power. After World War II, the United States had 50%, 45% of the gross national product of the planet Earth. In the Reagan years, that went down to 33%. In the second Bush's presidency, that was 25%. And during the Trump presidency, it's gone to 20%. And we all know that the United States cannot afford to subsidize the entire world. Now, with that in mind, let's look at what is specifically happening in the Middle East, okay? I can't remember how to pronounce it, but I think we have what's called a Thucydides trap. Basically, the phenomenon of an old power facing an up-and-coming power. China's the young Turk in the world, and the United States is the old power in debt, trying to hang on and transfer some power responsibly throughout the world. We have the Eisenhower Defense Complex making missiles with a Cold War mindset that were never meant to be shot. So if you are going to sell missiles to somebody who's never going to shoot them, the company needs to sell those missiles for $1 million each so that the company can continue to grow or stay afloat. So our weapon systems are vastly, vastly overpriced. Some of these missiles that we talk about are handmade, like Stradivarius violins, okay? There is a new paradigm coming out that is based on drones, hypersonic missiles, lasers, and artificial intelligence. And the United States is not particularly ahead of some of these other countries, particularly China, in terms of those paradigms. Russia and Ukraine are quite advanced with this new paradigm that we have, with cheaper weapons that actually work on the modern battlefield. We do not need Patriot missiles shooting at Shahed drones, okay? $1 million missiles against $10,000 drones. This paradigm is what Iran or the Ayatollahs are banking on. Okay, and I do not think that they are alone. I talk about Hezbollah and Hamas being proxies of Iran. I think that Iran is actually a proxy of China and possibly Russia too. I do not think Russia going to China is a good idea. The BRICS thing is not a good idea for Russia to move towards China against the United States, because I believe that China, with its command economy, and also Russia with its really tough mindset and semi-command economy as well, feels that they are more prepared to weather any storm and really would not mind a financial collapse in the West. And if Russia has all the land in the world, it's got 1/6 of the surface of the earth and only 150 million people to defend it, and it depends on the international system, the Geneva Conventions and UN charters, to prevent offensive wars in order to protect it. And it relies on its nuclear umbrella to protect itself. But technology is moving so quickly that there can be windows in which those nuclear umbrellas will not work. China is very active in space. These nuclear weapons can be shot down. And so if there is a collapse of the current world order, China, which cannot feed itself and has been hemmed in by sanctions and everything that's, attached to the current world order, will just go ahead and invade Siberia and take it over and get all the food and resources that they want. But for whatever reason, it seems like problems between Europe and the Ukraine and Russia and the United States are moving Russia towards China. And I believe that Russia and China are actually subsidizing the Ayatollahs in a war of attrition against the United States in order to bring the United States down so that they are no longer hemmed in by the restrictions of the world order that Europe and the United States have created together. So therefore, I read an article the other day that China has sent $70 million worth of weaponry to Iran. And then I flipped to another article. The United States has, requested appropriations for $70 billion worth of weapons. Okay? $70 million versus $70 billion. The United States is in a lot of debt. The more this debt goes up, the fewer tools we have to manage it with interest rates and other things like that, and we risk things like depressions and even more catastrophic economic scenarios. So the United States is in a bit of a predicament here. So Iran, I believe, with Chinese support and Russian support, is wanting to really bait the United States into going into debt and going broke with our outdated military engine and military industrial complex. So, Iran's raison d'etre has been, their reason for being, the reason that they say that they need to be the regional power in the Middle East is that they need to take out the great Satan Israel, okay? And they are feeding money to Hezbollah and Hamas and all of these terrorist organizations in order to make Israel into the bogeyman by defending itself from these terrorist attacks by shooting into hospitals full of kids and whatnot. And by the way, human shields are against the Geneva Conventions, the 1947 Geneva Convention. So, but everybody calls Israel the bad guy in this scenario, okay? So what we have now is, I believe from the last video, a supernatural intent to wipe out Israel that combines with Iran wanting to make itself be a regional power, which combines with China and possibly Russia wanting to get rid of the United States and the current world order by driving us broke in a protracted war where we're shooting our $1 million missiles at their $10,000 drones. So, one point to consider, what's good for America? Well, if America cannot win a war against Iran, it cannot win a war against China. Period. Okay? So, in this quadrupolar world, nothing against China, but Europe, Russia, China, and the United States need to be able to defend themselves from each other. And the way it looks right now, the United States would have a problem with a protracted war, because we are currently designed to be a kind of a police keeper where we go in with ultra superior, ultra expensive weaponry and just blow up some bad guy really quick and go home. Mission accomplished. So there is a certain amount of bait here that Israel is being used as bait and Iran is being used as a proxy by China to take out the United States. Okay. So what's good for America? Well, America needs to modernize and get a cheap defense industry that's advanced on the modern platforms, okay? We're not far behind, but we're just really not ahead. And currently our weaponry is just very expensive and needs to get a lot cheaper. Now, if we do have a war, okay, like we actually go to declared war, being on a war footing is a good position to be in order to adapt to economic difficulties. If you look at our statistics during World War II and economic statistics, we had massive amounts of debt and bonds and all of this, and we shuffled this and shuffled that, and we got everything under control, but we didn't let ourselves fall apart because we were actually at war. If we do not go to war, then we will basically, and say we didn't get into this war, okay, in the first place, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Okay, so the general trend in the United States was that the highly divided political parties and their donors, which are hungry for their own success and hungry to be able to channel government spending, is just continually spending more money than it has for the longest time, because we figured out with the Federal Reserve and everything basically how to print money and borrow money from ourselves, and we didn't think that that would be a problem, and eventually it's going to get to where it is a problem. So that would have happened, and something would have happened anyway. There would have been at some point, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there would have been some sort of secular reset, some sort of catastrophe that would have come out of this current trend. So, what I think happened really was that Benjamin Netanyahu really did convince Donald Trump to attack Iran and prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon because of combined intelligence saying that Iran really is out for a nuclear weapon because of what I think is really a supernatural desire to destroy Israel. And I do not think that Donald Trump was hoodwinked into it. I think he made a rational decision to enter into Operation Epic Fury. Now, I do believe that Donald Trump is legitimately a Christian. I do not think that he's terribly well informed and he's terribly advanced spiritually like a theologian, but I do believe that he is a Christian and he is surrounded by a very large number of Christian advisors who are pro-Israel and do want to defend Israel against its enemies for the theological reasons that I talked about in my last video. So I don't believe he was drug into it as a senile old idiot by Benjamin Netanyahu, but I do believe that Benjamin Netanyahu saw a legitimate threat, and really the only way to get rid of the threat would be a regime change. Now, the United States has had a bad run with regime changes with Iraq and Afghanistan. The way that we went about that, though, is that we wiped out the bad government and then we just told the new government to set yourself up with, we'll do security for you and we'll give you some advice and some help and we will, let you set yourself up. Those governments did not do that. Okay, they were corrupt and they had a, very complex tribal, ethnic, and religious situation that we weren't quite aware of, as is often the case with colonial powers. So, I do not believe that nation building automatically means failure. However, we did a good job of nation building after World War II with Germany. In that scenario, that country felt legitimately guilty about what it did. It knew that it lost unconditionally. And we got rid of everybody in the old government with nooses, okay? And we installed a new government, our government, okay? That can result in a successful regime change, all right? To where if you have the old government of Iran gone and a new government of Iran absolutely beholden to and 100% in alignment with United States and Israeli powers, then you can have successful regime change. And that government will capitalize on the situation. It will draw support from its loyal supporters, and it will be able to manage its own opposition if we don't just let it run wild, if we actually give it what it needs, and we actually direct it if what it needs is direction in order to form a post-war government. Therefore, the United States right now, I do think, can fairly quickly accomplish regime change. That's the only way we're going to get rid of this supernatural desire on the part of the Iranian government to nuke Israel, okay? Is if the new government really has your interests at heart. If not, then, I believe that these other parties will just come on in and any new government will be corrupted and the same thing will happen again. And so I can't say that I'm 100% in line with what Donald Trump is doing with the war, because I'm a little bit more like Benjamin Netanyahu, actually. Um, but what does this have to do with America first and freedom and America's best interest? Well, whether you agree with me or not, uh, the cat is now out of the bag. What has happened has happened. We now have, Omanis and Yemenis shooting tankers in the Red Sea, shooting Saudi Arabia. All of this, though, actually provides an opportunity for the Gulf Arabs to align with each other against Iran, the government of Iran, not the people of Iran. Just as I say that I have no issue with the people of China, that I love the Chinese people, I also love the Iranian people, and I love the Iranian people that are of a secular and progressive mindset, as well as religious Muslim Iranian people. It's this pattern or tendency that is filtering through the society from the government, from these spiritual, psychological, however you want to look at it, tendencies that are going on over there that has to change. I do believe that the United States can do this fairly quickly. And I do believe that there is opportunity for a large amount of cooperation between the United States, the Gulf states, and Israel, and that this could lead to peace between Arabs and Israelis, and it could result in a Middle East that can defend itself with coordination with, but less financial and military dependence on, the United States, so that the Middle East actually becomes its own regional base. It's not exactly America, Europe, Russia, and China, but that it can manage its own security fairly responsibly. And so with that, and I guess we're only 22 minutes into it, and I've been going for 30 minutes on these. So what would I say? How would I relate this to nicotine patches? I mean, I believe that this company that I want to do bicycle riding for, and talk about freedom for, and express the cowboy type of American values for, is in alignment with a lot of that. Now, Tucker Carlson, I don't think is, and so if this video gets to him, I'd love to talk with him about these things. I don't know what sort of solution he would propose now. Should we just leave? If we just leave, then we'll go back to our, $1 trillion defense budget, and Democrats and Republicans fighting over money and printing money and getting more and more in debt, and we will have lost a war. Okay, I think our international prestige should go down somewhat as we go from the sole superpower to one of 4 world powers. But that is a rather ignominious way to do so. If we go in to try and affect a change, we fail to affect a change, and we leave a region in the throes of violence and beholden to a hostile power, the current Iranian government. I just don't think that that's good for America. It doesn't give us what we need to have leverage against China and Russia and Europe, and to work in cooperation with those guys, because they think they'll just roll over us because of what Iran did to us. Not because of what China did to us, but because of what Iran did to us. So I sort of think we've hit a point of no return. I do think there are dangers. It is possible that we could have economic catastrophe because of this, or difficulties because of this. It is possible that the war could, be a protracted war that we, might have difficulty with. But I think the American people can win. And I think that that is better for the Gulf states. And I think it is better for Israel and the cooperation with the Gulf states. And I think it's better for the Iranian people. Even the conservative religious people who are hostile towards a lot of the trends that they see in Europe and the West, I think it is just better for the Iranian people altogether if their government is switched out for a government not set on wrecking everybody else, which is what this government is doing. As we try to get out, as we try to negotiate, they attack more. I don't know what's causing all of these trends. There are a lot of things that I wouldn't do if I were Iran. They're almost forcing us into a war, and I think that China is behind it, is what I think. I don't have clearances anymore. I don't know, ask the CIA director, ask the president, but I hate war. The Ukraine war, Russo-Ukrainian war has just been a horrific war. And this war, could result in some casualties. Would result in some casualties, will result in some casualties if it happens. But I really see if we pull out now, we will have lost. The place will be a mess. No aims will have been achieved, and it would be a Vietnam catastrophe kind of a scenario, and not good for the United States. It would not be good for the cooperation that the Christian base in the United States has with Israel. And it will not be good for Israel as a strong ally, and it will not be good for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It won't be good for anybody if we just sort of pull out. So what do you want to do now? I say modernize that defense industry as quickly as possible. Get a government ready to go that you are ready to control, okay? And put that government in Iran as quickly as possible, and you will have the minimal amount of casualties, and you will have a situation that can create peace. The only thing I'll say with my last couple of minutes is that even though I do believe China is doing this, and they are an enemy of sorts, I believe that China should be kept fed and happy. That whatever they need, that, I believe that, it should be given them so that they can feel safe and not promote wars like this in the future. That's just what I see from an avid news reader who loves America and who thinks that ultimately in the economic realm, though things might be difficult in the short term, we're on really bad footing anyway. And, this could actually be a way to get out of it, because we do not need to be spending, $1 trillion on defense. We need a modern defense industry that is actually capable of protecting the United States, walking tall and carrying a big stick, along with China and Russia and Europe. That's what I think on a geopolitical level that does mix somewhat with the spiritual concepts that I was talking about before. So I think ultimately the Israeli situation is, what they had going on really actually coincides with the American situation, and it's best for America to resolve the conflict in the Middle East quickly, with force. And that's what I have to say about that.